I like to tell details.
I know. I'm the same way. I am also a talker, so it'll might get a little out of hand. Welcome back, everyone. My name's Chris, and today I'm here with Andrés Montero. He is a composer, and he recently released his first solo album called Doorways. Andrés, it's really good to have you here. Thanks for coming. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm really thrilled to share stories and talk about the album with you. So thank you.
Hey, no problem. It's my pleasure. So, when and how did your musical journey begin?
It began in my home country in Colombia. I started learning music since I was 7 years old, and I started with theory, just learning the basics. Then I went on to piano, and then I went to the conservatory in Bogota, the National University. And then I did my career as a piano performance, actually, as a piano performer. And then, but at the same time, I was doing all the classes in composition and orchestration. And that's how I started getting really into composing. And then later on, I started being interested in composing for films. And then that's when I moved to LA
Nice.
to try luck and
Yeah.
also
To chase
study
the
a little
dream.
bit. Yeah, totally. And then, I was coming from a very like classical background. I was at the conservatory, and the composition was very academic. And then obviously the film music was a whole new world to me. And then so that's why I decided to come to LA, learned a little bit about everything. And then, after a couple of years, I started getting, gigs and, knowing people. And I started doing more orchestration as a job, which, that was kind of like my jam, because back in the conservatory, everything was about making scores, making notation look good, and making something that is readable for an orchestra or for a live performance. So I think that's why kind of my career started shaping into more like orchestration and arranging as well.
Yeah.
And so I mean that's how I started.
Yeah, no, I actually kind of agree with you with a lot of that, because when I was in college, I wasn't in a strict like conservatory type setting, but I still had a lot of the more formal music education, and I can see absolutely how the notation, like creating the scores and stuff, would lead you into the orchestration side of this business. It's actually a very easy way to get into the music industry of the film world. Do you find it hard to get out of the orchestration side of things to the more composition aspect of the film world, or are you pretty much you want to be in that camp, the orchestration camp, and then keep your composition more for your solo type stuff?
Yes, that's how it is right now for me. I truly enjoy orchestrating. For me, orchestrating is like a puzzle. And I love working with other composers and trying to put on paper, put on a score, their ideas in a way that they're gonna hear at a recording session. The way they imagine the music. And so to me, I really enjoyed. I don't really I'm not actively pursuing to switch or do more a composing career. But if it happens, it happens. If tomorrow somebody says, can you do this project, then I'll be happy to do it. Like composing wise.
Nice.
But since I've been working more in the orchestration side, I didn't want to forget how to compose, how to write music.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
that's why Doorways came along. That's how I started having this idea of I just need to put my ideas together in an album, and not to write something specific for a film or anything, just music, just the music by itself.
So your elevator pitch to the world, how would you describe your music in Doorways?
I would describe my music as eclectic. Like I said, I'm coming from a classical background, but at the same time, I like to listen to all kinds of music, and I like a little bit of metal, rock, and obviously Latin music, salsa, merengue. In Colombia, like if you don't like salsa or merengue, like you're in trouble because that's the way to get girls is to
Yeah.
know how to dance salsa, how to dance merengue. That's how it works. So I had to listen to that and enjoy it. So I really enjoy it. And obviously because of my work, I've been heavily influenced by film music. So I guess all those little things came along in the album. I really wanted just to put a little bit of everything, not just like one genre, or just orchestral music, or just merengue, or just one thing. So that's kind of how I wanted to put my music in doorways. And I think eclectic would be like a good way to describe what doorways is.
Yeah, having listened to the album 3 or 4 times now since you released it,
Well,
for me,
thank you.
yeah, no, it's a wonderful journey, and eclectic is definitely the word I would use to describe it. But I also feel that your Colombian ancestry and background, and the culture that you come from, is very much embedded in almost every piece there, even in the very filmic cues that you've written, so to speak. There's still that influence in there, which I really like because it really adds an identity to this album. And this is very much a wide range. The second track is it Gozala? Is that how you pronounce that?
Yes, yes.
That
Yep.
is like that reminds me so much of my theater days. That just seeing a stage production of that, either on in the theater or a movie that's a musical, it really much had that vibe. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a listen to just a little bit of Goes a Lot so people can kind of hear what I'm trying to say.
Cómetela, cózala, sí. Cómetela, cózala, sí.
All right, so that track, a lot of energy, and it definitely captures that kind of dancing theme that you mentioned earlier. You wanted to learn how to dance to get the ladies and all that, and that song definitely has all that energy. Another song on this album that is a huge standout is the Eclectic Sonata, and I really want to know what your creative process was specifically for that song, and maybe kind of go into just in general the album, how you kind of went about composing this. Also, when did you start working on this album?
A couple of questions there in one question.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but it's great because, and actually, I'm glad that you ask about the eclectic sonata, because that is actually the the oldest piece. Let's call it that way. That was the first piece that I wrote from this set of pieces that is in the album, and this goes back to I think around 2008 or 2009, something like that. So it's been probably 10 years, more than 10 years, when I was a student at the conservatory. And then this piece started because two of my friends at the conservatory, two flutists, they had this flute duet, and then they wanted to create like a chamber ensemble with two flutes and piano, which there's not that much repertoire for that specific ensemble. There are a few pieces for two flutes and piano, and that's kind of like the pieces that they were playing. And so they brought me in as a pianist, and then I saw a perfect opportunity to write something. That's when I was a student, and I just wanted to get ideas out, and then so that's how it started. And so I wrote that piece for that ensemble And then years later I kind of went back to that piece because I kind of listened to it again, and then I found that I like the themes, but there were things that I didn't like because it's been some years, and
It's the curse of being a
back.
composer, is what it is.
Yeah, and then so I was like, oh man, this is good, but like some other things are not that good.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to improve it. And so that's how kind of I started, like, I wanted to put an album together. I think this is a good piece to put in the album. And so I rewrote a bunch of stuff, but I kept a fair amount of the original material. And then in terms of the concept, that's when I started thinking about my eclectic taste and all the different backgrounds that I have. And at that moment, actually, when I wrote it, the first version, um, my composition teacher was very really into like contemporary music, like weird stuff, like atonal, aleatoric. And then I wrote this piece just not thinking about that. I was like, I want to write music. I want to write something that is fun to play, that is fun to hear, and kind of going in a contrary way from what my teacher was telling me what to do. So this was just totally like free form, free whatever. I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so that's how I started. That's how Eclectic Sonata came along. And I put a little bit of everything in this sonata, and obviously trying to connect everything as a one piece. And then so, I mean, if we're gonna start talking about more technical stuff, just kind of using just one scale that has that kind of Middle Eastern flavor, but at the same time, I have a little bit of Latin rhythms in it, a little bit of kind of humorous comic, that comical element as well, but at the same time, like the middle part of the piece, which is kind of like the second movement, is more melancholic, a little sad. And so I kind of try to put a little bit of different styles here and there, and obviously to make it virtuous, virtuo. Oh man, I forgot the word. Virtuosic. What's the word, Chris? Virtuoso.
Yes,
I
yeah.
just wanted to make something really virtuoso for the instruments.
Well, it really it comes across that way, and even for the pianist, the piano parts in there are very epic in a way, and very virtuosic. Is that how you say it?
Virtuosic. That's the word I was looking for.
I'm already terrible with words as it is. So you say 2008, 2009. This is
Yeah, I think
how
I
far
was
back?
around the time. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Because of all the different styles within kind of a your core voice as a composer, it seems like you got to collaborate with a lot of artists on this. And so that kind of brings me to some of the more technical questions of how much of this was samples versus live. And I got some more questions there, but I'll let you get started.
Yeah. Since my background is in classical music, I prioritize live musicians, and so in this album I think 99%, 98, let's say 98% of the album is all live with real musicians. There's only a very few elements sampled. I think in two tracks, which in one of the tracks, which is Mischievous, is intentional. Because it's more like including a little bit of electronic elements to it. So that one has samples, and then Venena Bibas is the other track that has some samples. And because unfortunately, my plan originally was to record a choir that I kind of had already, set up a recording for that, but because of the pandemic, I was not able to do the choir, and so I just had to record, few voices, and then everyone had to record separately in their own home settings.
How was that having to manage
That
this
was
through the pandemic?
well, recording the vocals was well, I have to say, not recording, but editing the vocals was a little tough because, I had great singers singing. Most of them just friends from Colombia, and they did a great job. But obviously, because they're recording in their own systems, uh, the sound is different which each microphone. Then also for some of the words it's hard to get like the ensemble just to cut off at the same time or to enter at the same time, even though we had a click. But with the vocals you have to be expressive, you cannot be just like a machine. So and obviously I wanted to have that expression from the singers. But obviously once you put all the vocals together, a little bit of, some people entered a little bit early, a little bit late. So that was, production wise, which I'm pretty sure most of people doing these kind of things during pandemic, they know that it's not that easy to put together all these vocals when people recording separately. So that was a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
That was a challenge.
Who
But
there was
yeah, go ahead.
there was a orchestra for sure that you've worked with. Was it the same orchestra for each piece that had the orchestra and like the brass and the woodwinds and stuff in it?
Yes, yes.
Are you allowed to say
So
who you recorded with?
yeah, I did record one orchestra. I did it with Budapest Scoring, and we just did it in one session. It was a 4-hour session, and we recorded all 4 pieces, which is about maybe a little bit over 20 minutes of music, which I think I knew it was gonna be ambitious. And but it was great. I mean, it was I think they did a great job, and we got it done.
That's
So
awesome.
and the other thing is that I wanted to have the whole orchestra in the same room. I didn't want to deal with striping. Just kind of like how you would treat a symphonic orchestra for a live
And that
performance, basically. So I had everything like harp, percussion,
that makes
woodwinds,
such a
brass.
difference too with your orchestration background because you know how to orchestrate for a group and how to write the parts so that when you do record in a with the whole orchestra together, the mix is not going to be a pain in the ass to put together.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
not to hate on composers, I'm definitely guilty of this. I'm not an orchestrator to the extent that I know exactly how to voice a group's, the different sizes of ensembles and sections in a way to get a good balance. And, that's why we get orchestrators, is because you guys know that. That's your job. And,
Yeah, that's our job.
yeah, and the fact that you did this, the 4 songs that are clearly have the big orchestra sound, it sounds great. I don't know who you had mix this, but you can tell that they're all in the same room. Kind of moving along, the album takes a very dark turn towards the end with the last few cues. The first one being Venena Bibas, which I believe comes from the like medieval Catholic exorcism. What's the
It was a prayer.
as a prayer? Yeah. And when I saw that, and I kind of knew that, I was like, where's this album taking us? What it means, that line, it's ipse venena bibas, right?
Yeah.
And is that, I made some notes here to make sure I get it right, and that stands for drink the poison yourself. Is that correct? Do I have that translation right?
Um, I cannot speak too much about Latin translations.
Anything you look
And
up on it, it always varies in different way, but that was kind
yeah,
of the gist of what I got.
yeah, it is. I mean, what I know, because obviously I didn't write the lyrics, but it's straight from the prayer in the medieval times to, like you said, um, to get rid of the demon.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, the core of it is basically trying to push away the devil and the evil, and kind of like protect me, Christ protect me. And
Yeah.
because one of the, I don't think, no, it's not in the in the in the track, but in the prayer, that's the one of the famous lines is "Vade retro Satana," which is step back, Satanas, Satan, just step back. So but yeah, that's the concept and the context of it. And I mean, and actually, this piece comes from the music that I did for a short film with the same name. And coming back to the this eclectic concept, I included this piece because it's for film. That one was
Yeah.
was specifically for the film. And I was really proud of the final result with
It,
the score for
it's a
this short film.
very
And
memorable track on the album. It almost has like a requiem kind of vibe, if I'm thinking of the right piece. I'm pretty
yep.
sure. uh,
Yeah. At the end is I put a little bit of requiem,
yeah.
so that's correct. And yeah, I really wanted to put it in the album because that's something that I also do. And that was the whole point, just to put a little bit of everything here and there.
Going back just a little bit to the people that you collaborated with. So how many people, if you have the number off the top of your head, did you collaborate with on this album to get it done?
I was trying to think about that the other day, and I think is a little bit more than 90 musicians that ended up
Wow.
working on this. Um, because I mean, I had a pretty good sized orchestra, full orchestra, and then the vocals that I had for Gozala and Venena Bibas, and also I recorded this more kind of more into like the rock side. So I had guitars and bass and drums recorded as well. The flutes for the Eclectic Sonata. So, and counting all the people that are involved, not only as musicians but all the recording engineers, the mixing engineers, the mastering engineers is it's a big effort from a lot of people. And so I was very very happy with how everything turned out, and happy to work with so many talented people, because I was not able to do this on my own. I had to obviously work with other people. And that's one of the beautiful things about creating music. Mostly I think orchestral music, to me, it's to get a lot of people in one room and playing your music. That's just
That's a dream.
that's it's a dream. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the dream.
I love it. Even just, a lot of the stuff I've worked on that's, my doing and not working for another composer or anything. I haven't done anything big on my own yet. But just getting, a friend over who's a professional, bassoonist and just sitting in the room with them and getting stuff recorded, even if it's just nonsense noise, for the sake of doing some sound design stuff. That to me is like it's part of the dream. I love working with people, and I'm so excited that you were able to work with that many professionals in this industry to create your own piece of art, that's un, you know, it's all you, it's 100% Andres. That's pretty awesome. So with that said, what is it like to market a solo album in the industry today? I'm assuming there's a lot of pros and cons to it. And I'm just curious how you found that process, putting this out.
It's hard. It's very hard. And I mean, to be honest, at this moment that we're doing the interview, I'm just starting basically to do the whole marketing and promotion. Since this is an independent work, as I basically did everything by myself, besides obviously having the musicians recording the pieces. It's to me, because this is my first album like produced by myself. It's been a learning experience. And so I'm still in the process of doing that. And it's been, to be honest, it's been a little bit slow for me, because it also happened that my daughter was born in like just 2 days after my album was released. So I had all these ideas planned, and all these plans for because my daughter was due like about 2 weeks after the album release, and also like I wanted to release the album before she was born, because I knew once she was born I was not going to have time.
Yeah.
So right now, actually, I'm started to get back to the ideas of promoting, but the reality is that it's very hard, just because during these days there are just so many songs and new music that is published on streaming platforms every day. And it's just really hard to compete, even though my album has such a different direction from releasing a pop song or a rock song. It's still really hard. And
Yeah.
I think one of the challenges that I found, just trying to coming up with ideas, which to me, and I don't know how you see it, I'm kind of curious to actually to hear your opinion about this. But for example, for me, it's hard to box my album in one genre, which is, I think, to me, that's what I wanted to do, basically, just like a non-genre album. And if somebody asked me, like, because just by doing the the things that they ask you to publish your album, they say, well, what genre is it? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little bit of everything,
It is.
which it could be a good thing, it could be a bad thing. And for promotion as well, it's been challenging. And but my whole idea is basically just to break that concept of just having an album, like a rock album, a pop album, just a band recording one album that has obviously different songs, different styles, but it's still kind of in the one genre.
It's such the curse of the music industry that once an artist puts something out in a very specific genre, especially someone that, like ourselves, that composes in all kinds of styles, getting classified in one specific genre kind of sucks, because the second you try to go out of that, the way the industry, especially, journalism, the way that they talk about those people that try to do something different, whether it's, which is it's all subjective as to whether or not what you do is good. It's people's taste. And I'm not going to sit here and crap on stuff that, I don't like if somebody else likes it. But that's the thing, is that journalism kind of does that. And there's always this focus about pop music and the pop industry being the leader because they're the more commercially viable sources of music out there. But, when you actually start diving into so much different music, you start to see that it's just a rat race. It's a game for numbers and likes and views, and it really just sucks. But not to be a cynic, about it the whole time, is at least the technology is so accessible for us to be able to do something like this, and we're gonna find a way, like that's just the way it is for composers. We find a way. And in terms of your, my opinion on like the genre of your album, I think the closest, the most accurate we can call it is experimental. That's right. The one genre that encapsulates, someone who's eclectic and offers a wide range of styles. I also feel like this album's very much marketed towards film composers because of it being an instrumental, and with your film background, there is this method of those very filmic pieces sounding like cues. Even the first track, it starts like it's an overture. Like we're about to get this, it's the opening credits, and then you kick in this percussion, and it's just kind of we're getting introduced to the main characters here, and then we get back to the more underscore. It's setting up the tone, the conflict, and for those of you who listen to that track, just see how it's structured. It kind of follows this form of, introducing us to the flavors of this album, and then the rest of the album just kind of plays out. And I love that. So even if that wasn't your intention, there's still a person like myself can still find meaning in things like that and have a connection artistically to it, which is wild.
Yeah, no, thank you for your kind words, and I'm really happy to hear that, because that makes me happy. That means that my job is done in terms of like delivering the idea, because for myself, and you mentioned a word to me that is very key in this, is a playlist. Like if we go on our streaming services, we love playlists. We create our own playlist, and at least in my life, my playlist is everything. Like if I put my thing in shuffle, it's just gonna play from John Williams to System of a Down, to salsa, or it's just like you never know what's next. And then so that was kind of like the idea with the album, that you just start listening to something and then just go to another track that is a whole different world.
And that's the
Therefore, the
whole,
name,
yeah,
the
the whole
name
name
is
comes from it.
basically, you know, it's like one song leads to another into a different like world. It's like a different doorway to something totally different. And so that was definitely the concept of the album.
Yeah, and it works. Just as an album on its own, it works very, very well. Having put this album out, has there been a goal at any point in creating this album of wanting to perform a live show and perform these pieces? And if so, when can we expect that? Or what's your kind of thoughts on the whole doing a tour of this?
um well, right now I'm not a touring performer. So I mean, that would be kind of fun, actually. That would be something unreal, just to put together this as a live performance. I hope that the orchestral pieces get performed. That's something that I would love to you know to hear, just listen to my pieces in a live setting. um and and just to break a little bit of the concept of the modern composer. um because if these pieces get played by an orchestra, um you know i have to be I have to deal with the classical orchestras, which most of the time what they're doing in their programming is when they play modern composers is usually the very, very modern composers, which they usually compose music that is atonal, or I mean sometimes like these days it's just a fusion of everything, but obviously more towards the intellectual part of the music, that you kind of have to know a little bit of music or a little bit of what happened in the 20th and the 21st century in the music history to kind of understand and to enjoy that. And I know that my music doesn't have that flavor in it 100%. My music, I think, is more towards a little bit of mixture between something that who loves orchestral music but who loves something that you can hum, that you
Oh yeah,
can at
yeah.
least enjoy.
I'm definitely guilty of that for sure. Humming some of your.
um
I think I was while I was waiting for you to join the call. I had one of your songs stuck in my head and I was humming it because I just listened to a couple beforehand. If you were
yeah,
to put together like your own like group, do you have like a dream team of musicians and artists you would love to collaborate with and go live and do a show?
oh wow. Well, I mean, to be honest, when I hear when I was listening to the final mixes, and hearing Fantastic Bambuco, which is the first track, and Minor Key March, which is the last one, I was dreaming in my head, thinking, Gustavo Dudamel should conduct this at the Hollywood Bowl. And I was like, this should be the dream. I could totally picture him, waving his hands and with his energy, my pieces that I
I'd pay
dream about.
$200 to sit there and see that. That would be amazing. That's yeah.
So, because I've been, I love the Hollywood Bowl. I love the Walt Disney Concert Hall here in LA, and I have a lot of fun every time I go there. And I just think, like, I don't know. I think those pieces should be a lot of fun to play
Oh, they
in
would.
those venues. So who knows, if someone who's listening, watching to this, if anyone has any connections with Dudamel, let us know.
I'm pretty sure he watches all of my videos and is tuning in right now. Okay, so kind of going back into the industry, we kind of talked a little bit about trying to market our own solo album and things like that. If you could change anything about the industry from a solo artist side, not necessarily as an orchestrator, but just from your experience creating this album and producing this and getting it out there. If you could change anything about the industry, what would it be?
Well, that is a very, very tricky question. And I don't really have a straight answer to that, because the industry is so complex, in any level. It's very complex. But I have to mention that probably the topic that a lot of people talk about these days is related to royalties. I think that is something that needs to, it's changing, but I think it needs to change probably faster.
Yeah.
Just because the new media these days is all the streaming services, and this goes for music, but also for movies and TV shows. And believe it or not, the majority of the income for musicians and filmmakers and everyone that is involved in a video movie production is royalties. And it's something that definitely needs to change for the best. And so that's something that and I'm not, I mean, and to be honest, I don't know 100% the ins and outs of the how it really works. But yeah, it's something that something needs to happen there. And another thing that I kind of miss is going back to physical CDs, the physical part of it. It's tough because the way the industry is now with the streaming services, I mean, it's very convenient. I pay my monthly subscription and I get access to a lot of stuff, and I don't really need to go and buy a bunch of albums, which that part I miss, going to the store and then picking the albums and opening, looking at the art cover and put it into the thing. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that is because I remember a couple of years ago when Amoeba was well, still in Hollywood, but at the old location. I went to the soundtrack section, and I mean they had so many things, so many, and I was like, oh my god, this is so fun. I kind of want to get this, I kind of want to get that. But then I was thinking, well, I mean, honestly, like I have that in my my streaming service, and it was, I mean, I decided not to get them, but just because I already kind of had them. Which is sad because I kind of miss that physical part of it. So I guess that would.
I definitely get that. I I still buy CDs, mainly because the the our car that we have, we bought back in, it's an '08, and it didn't have the aux port type stuff, and we're lazy. We don't want to like have a stereo installed, pay for that. So we just still have CDs. So we still have a use for it. And just, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was in San Francisco. And it's funny that you mentioned Amoeba, because they still have an Amoeba in San Francisco. And I was just in that part of the city. So I stopped in and I grabbed a couple CDs. So I had something to listen on the drive back. It was very much a, it took me back, because I don't go to music stores as often anymore. If I do, it's there's a Rasputin in Fresno, near where I live, and I'll hit that one up for vinyl, because I'm a vinyl collector. But there is something, like you said, that there's a charm to it that you don't get out of streaming. So I still try to do that any chance I can. Especially for a lot of the artists that I listen to. If they do a vinyl release, I'm usually buying the limited edition, or they did only like 150 prints of it. Yeah, the industry, it's fun to be in it, but it's terrible to be in it. It's a love-hate kind of lifestyle. Those types of questions I don't think we'll ever have the right answers for. We can just only hope that the people that are people in our generation start to get involved more with the organizations that do run these things, because right now it's still being run by the older, the old breed that came up in the 60s and 70s, and they're still living by those models, and it just doesn't work today.
Yeah.
So what's next for you?
More work. Keep working in the film industry. As an orchestrator, also in the music department. I truly love what I do. Um, and with Doorways, I submitted the album, and one of the tracks, Fantastic Bambuco, which is the first track, to be considered in the Grammys. So I'll be doing some some campaign and some ads for that, and shooting for the sky, and
Go for it,
trying
man.
to
That's awesome. That'd be amazing.
So yeah. So that's next for me, trying to get the word out on Doorways, and doing more stuff for film, and obviously I would love to keep writing music, and eventually a new album.
That would be wonderful. Well, Andres, thanks so much for joining me here for this interview. I had so much fun talking with you. I hope we get to do this again on future projects that either you or myself work on together. So yeah, everyone, Andrés Montero's latest album, Doorways, came out at the end of August of 2021, and it's available on Spotify, Apple Music, and pretty much all the other streaming services. Thank you so much again for joining me, Andrés, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you again for your kind words. And I'm just so happy that we did this, and very, very happy that you like the album. So thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks again. We'll see you all later.